never thought in a million years I could still finish second in one of the hardest stages of the Tobago Classic.
Oh my God, 2 years already.
We have turned the economy around.
Plays it to Cox, and Cox puts it in the back of the net.
We're going to go over there and prepare as best as possible. As I mentioned before, we learn from the experiences of what happened against the UAE.
I assure this Honourable House, by extension the national community, that all of our national teams will be fully funded.
They say 2 years is a very important stage in life. It's when the child begins to fully develop. And in many ways, the morning shot is now beginning to fully develop itself. On October 7th, 2016, we came on air, and we're now standing on the brink of 2 years. Every show is a special show, but this one is a little bit more special. We'll reflect on how far we've come, but we won't exactly be popping champagne because we've got a lot to cover, including but not limited to breaking down the budget. We're also following the West Indies' first test against India on day 2. We'll be bringing you an update on that shortly. Also later in the show, TNT's women's footballers have begun their final round of World Cup qualification in the Carolinas, and how life on the big stage can sometimes make you afraid. They've been brave, but the World Championships has been a bitter pill to swallow for TNT's volleyballers. But neither the World Cup qualifiers nor the World Championships, not even the West Indies cricket, could overshadow the budget this week. It's the big news. Sport allocated $400 million. But don't let the figures fool you. I'm standing in front of the big screen to break it all down for you. So the Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs, Shamfa Cudjoe, has $396,360,000 to work with. Or does she? That statement isn't actually true. Let's get on the big screen and show you why. You see, that allocation actually includes recurrent expenditure of $280,000. That means just about 3/4, or 70% to be more exact, of that money will go to paying employees' salaries at the ministry, repaying loans, and the sport ministry has a lot of them, buying office equipment, goods, and different services. This is really interesting, so let's dig a little bit deeper. Laden in debt, the ministry is repaying 3 huge loans. The biggest is the First Citizens Bank for the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. They're aiming to repay close to $72 million this financial year. Next, Answer Merchant Bank helped develop 9 recreation grounds for the ministry. They want to pay them back $43 million or thereabout this fiscal year. And then a further $3 million or close to for Unicot. We're staying with recurrent expenditure. Salaries and allowances have actually gone up by all of $800,000. Last year it was 22 mil. This year it's 22.8 mil. Still, recurrent expenditure we're dealing with here. Let's head to the next slide. The rent and lease of the ministry has actually gone up by $175,000. Very interesting, because when the government actually came into power in 2015, one of the first moves was moving the Ministry of Sports office from Abercrombie Street to Sinclair Avenue. It was supposed to be cheaper. It's actually gone up. All right, next. This is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. That's roughly up by $34.5 million. Transfers and subsidies close to $201 million. So the big question really is, if the ministry has this much recurrent expenditure, how much is actually going to be for the growth and development of sport locally? When we worked it out, it was just over $116 million. And remember, the Minister of Finance went out on a limb saying this during his presentation.
I assure this Honourable House, by extension the national community, that all of our national teams will be fully funded.
As far as promises go, that's a big one. Another key aspect we have to look at are facilities here in TNT, and there are so many. And maintenance for all of these stadia, like the Aquatic Centre, the Racket Centre, the Brian Lara Cricket Academy, Atto Boldon, Hazley Crawford Stadia, all fall within recurrent expenditure. The government has budgeted, though, to upgrade and improve many facilities like the Dwight York Stadium in Tobago. However, it gets a lower sum to run its affairs this year than it did in 2018 by roughly $400,000 as well. On the upside, however, youth centers across TNT have actually been given more money, over $1.7 million more dollars. That's a huge increase from 2018. Take a look at this as well. $2.5 million for the upgrade of swimming pools. That's close to $120 million more than last year. Indoor sporting arenas, the same as last year at $3 million. Youth Affairs Ministry, another key one. It'll be interesting to see the youth affairs aspect of this ministry over the next year because it has benefited immensely. It's up to $1.8 million or thereabout. It'll be interesting to see what new aspects of the youth affairs aspects of the ministry are actually going to be launched in the coming fiscal year. You see, all of this brings us to the subventions. The subventions are key for every fiscal year. The sport company has actually received $215,000 more than it did last year. The national sporting organizations can perhaps expect an increase in its subventions because that went from $8 million last year to $11 million this year. The Boxing Board of Control stays pretty much the same. The national youth organizations have gone up by $290,000. You do the math. The recently launched sports policy has been put at $5 million. So you see, it all brings us back now to the big question: is Trinidad and Tobago's economy bouncing back? It's a jungle of numbers, but when we come back, we've got a special guest to help break down the budget and forecast the year ahead in sport. It's 2 years of The Morning Shot. You're celebrating with us.
I want to congratulate the Morning Shot. They've been around 2 years and we hope that they'll be around for another 20 years. They give me Friday. I just watched that and I know everything that happened, good, bad and indifferent. And I like the indifferent parts, the part with all the who falling down and who miss putt and thing. I like that. So congratulations to the Morning Shot team. Job well done.